In our previous video, we discussed the characters we wanted to see make the roster of Injustice 2 that have a reasonable shot. In this video, we'll still be discussing the characters we want to see in the game, but these ones essentially have little to no chance of making it in based on a few factors in our eyes. While all of the characters on this list have existed in the DC universe, they're either too obscure without making a major impact, like Goldface, a Green Lantern villain, too hard to implement, like Starro, too similar to more well-known and iconic characters like the whole Green Lantern Corp, or simply make no sense being in a fighting game like putting in Batmite or Ambush Bug. Technically every character in this video has a shot since we didn't go to the very bottom of the DC character barrel, but being honest with ourselves, they're quite the reach. And like the other Injustice 2 speculation video, DJ Weird Sister is helping me out with the comic book end in this video. Once again, just pretend she's calling in from a radio show to explain the decreased sound quality.
Hey everybody! Yeah, I'm definitely broadcasting right now to a live studio audience.
What kind of radio show has a live studio audience?
Shush!
Even though we say these characters are unlikely, we would love to be proven wrong since there is still a chance. So here are our top 10 cool but unlikely DC characters we want in Injustice 2.
Number 10, Alfred Pennyworth. Sure, he's not the type to put on a cape and go out and punch bad guys, but you gotta admit he's one of the badasses of the DC universe. I mean, have you read the Injustice comics? He headbutts Superman in the face. Look it up. I swear to Darkseid, it's true. And besides, he's a former British secret agent, all like James Bond style. Battler to the Buttman himself. I mean, think of what you could do with butler powers. Come on, Injustice, just give me this.
While he knows how to fight with legitimate martial arts and other skills, in a game with characters that fire eye lasers and vomit red, I think he needs some more dazzle with that Butler-themed moveset to stand out, while sprinkling in some actual fighting abilities, assuming the Kryptonian nanotech plot device is still in effect. You could have moves like setting a table for dinner and then throwing it in your face, or some sort of status ailment damage like,
A spot of tea, sir.
Oh yes, thank you.
The tea is poisoned.
Number 9, Granny Goodness, which is a weird name to say. So I don't really want Granny in the game as much as I want her minions. She is Darkseid's top general, and her design is based off comedian Phyllis Diller, which are two things I never expected to interact. While she has superhuman strength and weird weapons from Apocalypse, being a general, she constantly summons her minions, known as the Furies, to fight for her. The three main ones I saw were Mad Harriet, the leader Lashina, or at least she fights like she's a leader, and Stompa, who stomps on you. While these three could be separate characters, I cannot see NetherRealm Studios spending time on movesets for each one, or even one of them, over other popular characters, since these minions are characters who are somewhat minor in the end. However, since their powers are really one note, I would like to see Granny summon different minions for her attacks. Maybe make her Injustice Triborg. That would be time-consuming to program and implement though, making them all unlikely. Still, you gotta like how Lashina fights you with electric streamers. Of all of them, my favorite has to be Mad Harriet, design-wise. She has claws on her knuckles. That's so unique. What other comic book character has claws like that?
You mean like X-23?
Yeah, that was the obvious answer. Of course, if you want a better fighter from Apocalypse that is not Darkseid, Big Barda would probably be the best option. If you think they're good, they should be. She trained them. She's a legitimate candidate though, so she belongs on the other list.
Number 8, The Question. Now, the Q didn't make it to our real top 10 list because they're more of a detective than a real rock'em sock'em type hero. Still, you gotta love the trench coat, the fedora. What a classic look.
The tie too.
Now, are we talking about Renee Montoya or Vic Sage? I'd be fine with either. Renee is the badass lesbian cop of my heart, and Vic was Rorschach before Rorschach was Rorschach. I mean, come on. got to have dirt on evil Superman. He goes through everyone's trash.
That being said, I still like him and would like to think of how he would play. He could have a moveset like Phoenix Wright's from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where he attacks you by investigating the areas, attacking you accidentally, throwing evidence at you, and eventually prosecuting you. Just swap out the evidence with top secret information and prosecution for interrogation. He could also have Q's moveset from Street Fighter solely based on how similar they are. Both go by the name Q, they dress the same, and their faces covered when on the prowl. That would mean the Question would just fight you with manic swipes and taunting, but I feel the Question would probably bring a bit more finesse with that moveset. Or you could always go with the Justice League Unlimited route and have the Question run over bad guys with his car. Number 7. Volcana. Alright, so she made her first appearance in Superman the Animated Series, where she had an episode with a cool backstory and ending where she gets her own island where Superman brings her peanut butter and stuff. Then the DCAU writers decided to make her a reoccurring villain in Superman and Justice League. She never appeared after that outside of definite appearances in the DCAU comics, so she needs a bit more attention to make that comeback, right? It's possible in my universe. There's a lot of creativity you could use with her fire powers. She could be the Killer Frost of this game, where she was a lesser-known character to the general public, and NetherRealm Studios gives her a mostly original moveset based around her element. Of course, Killer Frost has at least been in a notable amount of media, but why let Volcana's design go to waste? It's time for a return in Injustice 2.
Just admit it, Top 10. You just like her because you think she's hot.
Well, obviously, she's always using fire. That's just a natural effect. That's how science works.
Yep, that's definitely it. Number 6. Talia Al Ghul. Now, Ra's al Ghul is already implied to be in the game.
Ra's al Ghul?
So why not have his badass, sexy daughter show up, release the ninjas, seduce the Bruce, and knife some folks? Her son Damien's in the game as evil jerk-face Nightwing already, so she's gotta be due for a custody visit, right? And we have enough martial artists.
Prove that.
But the sword play could be something to look forward to.
She's a character where lore-wise, she makes sense and potential movesets are creative with a good amount of references to the comics. But her issue lies in her being a Batman villain, or even ally, in a game that already features more Batman characters than any other franchise if we just go by the first game. For characters from Batman's Rogues Gallery, there are more recognizable characters by design that would also be new to Injustice 2 as a playable appearance, like Poison Ivy or Killer Croc, who would have movesets that are much more dynamic than Talia's potential moveset. While I would make the argument for Talia to make the final roster, based on popularity of other characters indigenous to Gotham, I feel there's a figurative wall of Batman characters that's just too steep for Talia to climb to make that final roster. Or more pit to climb, it's just a Dark Knight Rises reference, move on. Number 5. Stargirl. She's another character I love the design of, but unlike Volcana, Stargirl has an extended backstory in the comics, powers that bring something unique to the table, and a smile you could find on the mascot of a cereal box. Hey everyone, try my new cereal, Starros! Ooh, that's an unfortunate name. Maybe she's not as unlikely as the other characters on this list, since she was in the first game, as a statue we could smash, thanks for playing. She's more of a secondary DC hero, so I could see her in a game eventually, but maybe not the sequel game when there are so many more prolific heroes to include over her, especially based on impact in the comics alone. She has the potential for a fun moveset involving her Cosmic Staff, which can control gravity, absorb energy, emit heat, fire some stylized energy Star Blast, create force fields, and more. So basically she has all the tools for a fighting game moveset. Maybe with a bit more notoriety, she could make the roster of an eventual Injustice game in the future.
I don't know, man. In the comics, doesn't she have a big old robot hanging around with her? Name a Stripe? That could be a fun game mechanic. Hello, I'm a cute girl, and here's my big, badass bruiser.
I hate to ruin your vision, but he's actually just a guy in a robot suit, so maybe not as awesome. Or maybe just as awesome. Depends how much you like robots versus people in robot suits.
Number 4, Kilowog. I know we already have a Green Lantern in Injustice, but come on! Aliens, man! If your game can have aliens, it should! Besides, Green Lantern rings function on creativity.
And willpower.
As long as his attacks are made of green light, they could have nothing in common with Hal's. Green Lantern the Animated Series was hugely popular, and Kilowog was a main character. So come on, let's bring him back!
Well, he's actually a pretty notable Green Lantern in the grand scheme of things. However, while having some other Green Lanterns in Injustice would show the variety of the ring users, I think NetherRealm Studios is looking to add more representatives from the different Lantern Corps, like Atrocitus making his Injustice debut. Still, Kilowog would make a great cameo in the background during outro again, or maybe in a move of the main Green Lantern like Atrocitus' cat, Dexter, and his moveset. Really, they could just make a fighting game with only Lantern characters, considering how different each one is. One of them is a living planet. Find a way to implement that and there's an instant main for me.
There's also a tiny squirrel named Chip. He's also a Green Lantern.
See, this is why the Lanterns need their own fighting game. Number 3, the Wonder Twins. Well, this calls for a cheesy reference to start.
Wonder Twin powers!
Activate!
Form of video commentary!
Shape of a great idea for Injustice 2. Okay, well, maybe not, but this would be the greatest inclusion if NetherRealm decided to pull it off. The Wonder Twins are aliens. They were created in the 1970s for the Super Friends show, which was highly camp. Their camp powers involve pressing their rings together, saying the chant we had a parody of earlier, and then saying the form they wanted to take to help save the day. Jaina, the sister, can take the form of any animal, and Zan, the brother, can take the form of water, solid, liquid, or gas. They then work together to help save the day. It's very silly.
Oh my gosh, look at their terrible 70s Volcan outfits. I love them so much.
I mean, Zan has transformed into an ice unicycle as Jaina rides him as an octopus. If you put them in the game, you would probably have to play as one twin and then summon the other one to be useful. Despite their history, DC eventually integrated them into the main comic book universe nearly 20 years after their introduction. And they've had plenty of appearances in other media too to bolster their popularity, like Smallville, Justice League Unlimited, and most recently, and kinda surprisingly, Teen Titans Go, where they look highly more adorable than I remember.
They're so tiny!
Anyway, the Wonder Twins seem like a lesser version of Beast Boy if he always had a bucket of water handy, but for the sake of camp, please consider them.
Number 2, Arsenal. He's like Green Arrow, but with guns. And arrows. And whatever other weapon you want. Billy clubs, grenades, a sword that one time, the list goes on. What a great variable moveset for a character. Not to mention, it's a good way to differentiate him from his mentor. I mean, and he looks hot. He can even wear the inexplicable trucker hat he picked up in the New 52 if he wants. And all the other characters can call him Speedy, and it'll be hilarious.
I don't think I've ever seen two archers on the roster of a fighting game. Green Arrow will always be the top bow and arrow of the DC universe and consequently Injustice, with the second most popular likely being Speedy or Red Arrow. Wait, Arsenal is both of those characters, except when someone else takes that alias. I bring that up though, since Roy Harper, aka Arsenal, aka Red Arrow, aka Speedy, is feasible from a lore standpoint with his history of being Green Arrow's sidekick, a Teen Titan, and an outlaw. Additionally, he's probably most well known from my subjective point of view as Red Arrow over his role as Arsenal, so if he was in the game, I feel his Red Arrow persona would be integrated over Arsenal. Still, he was probably the closest of the characters on this list that almost made it onto our list of characters that should be in Injustice 2, so we could be proven wrong on calling him unlikely and we would be okay with that. Before we go to number 1, Here are some honorable mentions, since there were just way too many DC characters we wanted to include that we think will not make a playable appearance in Injustice that we would still like. And come on, they all deserve a shout out. So let's rocket through these. Roll 'em.
Impulse and Kid Flash. Love those boys, but their powers are too similar to the Flash.
Toy Man. He has lots of weapons that would look pretty funny in a fighting game. However, there are much better Superman villains to use.
Wonder Girl.
What are her powers?
To punch you right in the face.
Space Ghost.
Coast to coast?
Yeah, that's where I know him from and why I want him in the game, but DC Comics did put out a comic series at some point, so there's my justification. Plus he had attacks in the show that he used in the original cartoon series.
Tim Drake. The rest of his family's here anyway.
Vigilante. His superpower is he's an old-fashioned cowboy.
It's high noon. Fire and ice.
Twice as nice, but probably just a better version of her Wonder Twins idea. And a cooler version of it too. No pun intended. And finally, Roulette, who is an expert gambler and has no fighting abilities whatsoever except for stabbing people with the pins in her hair, so really she should never have been suggested. But I liked the one Justice League Unlimited episode where she had an underground fight club where she just had only female superheroes fight each other.
Can I go to there?
She had to mind control them all.
Don't ruin my fantasies.
Number 1. This is probably the character of the ones on this list that I think has the best potential moveset, and is mainly held down by the fact that not only is he a different version of a popular DC superhero, but also he's the future version of possibly the most popular DC character, which likely shoots down his chances of being his own individual character in Injustice any time in the near future. Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond. He has a great potential moveset with his advanced versions of Batman's technology, but he's much more nimble and has a different fighting style and attitude than Bruce Wayne does. Really, the concept of having him in the game using similar tools as Bruce Wayne is not out of the question at all, considering Supergirl and Superman or Batgirl and Batman can exist in the same game with the same sources of power and weapons, but completely different movesets. However, with Terry living in the future and having the same namesake as Bruce Wayne Batman, it would not make the most sense to include Terry over other characters that are completely different from the same timeline as the other DC characters in Injustice. It's possible to explain, but it's sort of unfair to other franchises.
Well, maybe the Batman Beyond suit will be alternate armor?
It wasn't the first game.
Oh, well, good for Terry.
Well, actually, it's not that good for Terry, since it means Terry likely won't be able to make it into Injustice 2, with the Batman Beyond suit for Bruce Wayne acting as the compromise for not having Terry as his own character, assuming they bring it back. In other video games with Batman, like the Arkham series, that Batman Beyond skin has been an alternate costume for Bruce Wayne. So unless a game is set in Batman Beyond's time period, I don't think Terry will get a clear shot to shine. That's, though, probably hyperbole since I've seen solid demand for the character. They could always do some sort of time travel storyline I mentioned earlier and prove me wrong. Or maybe they can just make a fighting game for Batman Beyond eventually. I think that will sell. All in all, Terry McGinnis makes a great Injustice character that we may not see in the next game as his own character. Still, you never know, especially with his great TV series and recent comic line. Batman Beyond for Injustice 2. All of these characters for Injustice 2. So what did you think of some of these choices? Do any of them have a more likely shot than we give them credit for? We'd love to hear that, especially because we like all these characters. Also, are there any unlikely characters or oddballs we left off this list? Let us know. If you want to hear us talk more about the Injustice 2 roster in speculation form, check out our list of characters we feel should make the roster and make more sense than some of the ones on this list, if you enjoyed this video and haven't already seen that video. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and this is Mr. Top 10 List,
And DJ Weird Sister.
saying see you in the next video. Oh, and here's some outtake blooper things if you need more time to click these annotation end card things. Or not, just let the video end and enjoy your day. There are more Furies than the ones I mentioned, like Guillotina, who cut you, or Bernadette, who has a classy name. There's also Big Barda, but I will not insult her by putting her on this list since she actually has a feasible shot. Did you know the question has a face under the lack of face?
Yes, dear, we know.
Wait, is it Volcana or Volcana? Well, enjoy my inconsistent pronunciation for this segment. The Wonder Twins are also assisted by their animal sidekick, a blue monkey from space named Gleek.
Gleek? Like the Glee fans?
Especially that we put Bane in the first game, right? I was gonna...